brought up. My name's Paul Ferron, I'm from Merck Consumer Health Group. I'm part responsible for the Seven Seas brand as well as Landmarks Healthcare, the digital marketing manager, overviewing all those sort of events. I've been asked sort of to come along here today to share with you some of the longer term thinking we applied to a on-pack loyalty system which we wanted to introduce to the Seven Seas brand. And some of the sort of vision we had to sell to the board to encourage them to go along with the investment. So just trying to, that's a, I think I'm high one. And basically one of that part of that vision was actually set, I'm not moving away from that, I think I've got that nice. I think my style means more walking. Yeah, there's my notes. So yeah, no, absolutely. So and part of the vision we sold to the business was not just to think about the here and now and what's available, but potentially what could be available in the future, underpinned by mobile. So it was a little bit of a tough ask. Seven Seas, it's fair to say, is a 75-year-plus brand in the UK. We sell vitamins, minerals and supplements. Any of you ever taken cod liver oil in your hands up? It's a Mercer's. And it's fair to say that we've done quite a lot in our 75 years. Once in Greece, we used to drive around in the 50s with a big cod on the back of the truck and drive around. So we've been out there in ambient media for a long time. But it was quite a bit of a tough sell to sell a loyalty program to the board. But the key thing what I'm here to do is talk about the sort of the trends we talked about in the future to get them to think something a bit more long term. Think about the infrastructure we would want to build and something we can continue to take advantage of and move away from a tactical point of view. To do that, we focus on two factors. We focus on this trend of increased mobility of digital devices and also on some real world signals which are occurring right now out there in the marketplace, and as a result focus them in on the opportunity of what could be done now and what could be done in the future. I've seen some stats today, but no one's mentioned this one, so I'm quite happy. The Domino's guys think it's going to hit 80% in 2015. The IAB are predicting 75% in 2013. And that's fantastic. I mean, it's amazing. You saw the image earlier of the iPads and the mobile phones being used at the Pope. At Christmas 2012, we witnessed across all the websites we monitor an 80% increase in iPad usage on all our sites. Absolutely astonishing. A YouGov survey recently came out which said that 30% of the UK adult population, that's nearly 12 million, own a tablet. A lot of our brands, it's fair to say, concentrate on the older demographic, and obviously you could potentially say, well, sure, it's a young person's thing. Actually, we've seen the opposite, and we think the user experience given by tablets for older people actually far outweighs that of laptops, and we've not seen any negative impacts as a result. I think also there's a stat doing the rounds for May, the BBC iPlayer, for the first time ever in May, hit 41 million downloads using a tablet, which beat mobile at 40 million. So there's obviously a change in behaviour as we've been talking about. We've already touched upon it in previous ones. We used all these arguments to convince the board basically that things were changing. For those of you who don't class mobile, there's a lot of people here who class a tablet as a mobile device. Bearing in mind there's several on the front row that are using iPads today. But if you cast your mind back to the Olympics when Usain Bolt would run up to the crowd celebrating, the amount of people taking photographs and using their camera on the iPad. And the reality is the iPad and other tablet devices are really being moved by everybody around in the UK because of the free Wi-Fi which is available, usually propagated by your own broadband packages if you're on Sky or BT or TalkTalk. So they're just like mobile, and people find these experiences fantastic. And the photograph, obviously, from the Pope, there's a fair few tablets being used as photograph. It's there. We used all those arguments to convince them, but we also said, look what's happening here with Google Glass. As the Seattle Times has turned people a glass hole. Obviously, we'll have to see what happens when they actually become mass market. Some places in Seattle are already threatening to ban people wearing Google Glasses. What impact will this happen on the future of mobile marketing, never mind the future of online marketing? But it's not just Google Glass. For those of you who want to check out Meta View, which is an augmented reality product soon to be released at the same time, and ReconJet, which seems to be a more sporting application of the Google Glass, their version of Google Glass. So there are alternatives out there. We sold this to the board and said, look, things have changed, and we need to think about building an infrastructure, not just about an on-pack promotion. I love this image. It represents my living room. I'm not sure. At Seven Seas, we sponsor the ITV News, weather, sorry, the ITV weather. And we have massive coverage as a result. We hit over 80% of the UK households at least 3 times. So we're ingrained in traditional marketing in that sense. But the reality is we're also fully aware that the attentions are more divided than ever. Hands up who will pretend to be watching TV while also on their phones tonight. Apparently the term is called frazzing. It was coined by a psychiatrist in Massachusetts, and it stands for frantic, ineffective multitasking, typically with the delusions that you are getting a lot done. I'm guilty. Actually, when I was doing this presentation, at one moment I had to just take a step back, and I had my personal laptop, my work laptop, my iPad, so I took a photograph with my iPhone. I haven't shared that here today because the desk was a mess, and my boss wouldn't be necessarily too happy about our behaviour. But the reality is, obviously, there's multiple devices in there. So, as Seven Seas, it was sort of get with the times. We need to think about this in the future, not necessarily for the immediate now, because you'll find out where we came from the mobile angle for a loyalty program. Clearly, real-world factors, especially for Seven Seas, is we all our products in retail. You can't necessarily buy directly from Seven Seas on the site. We have other brands which are e-commerce, and obviously, what's happening in retail now? QR codes was mentioned previously. The ubiquitous as the retailers are trialling and experimenting. Hands up if you've seen the Tesco experiment in South Korea. About 40% here, yeah. So for those of you who haven't, what Tesco did, they took over a subway station and put up basically a virtual shopping wall, all underpinned by QR codes where people could do it. That's now been launched in Barcelona. You've seen versions in India, and that's John Lewis in the UK attempting it from the Waitrose. And if you go into your local Asda, you'll see QR codes everywhere. That's potentially interacting at the point of shelf, and it's encouraging switching behaviour. Now, for a brand like Seven Seas, which is based on regime, based on loyalty, that's the potential to lose a customer at shelf is a really big worry for us. In my world, we have the Google gentleman from Ian here earlier. The biggest announcement they've made this year is for the change of their pay-per-click infrastructure. Previously, Google would recommend that what you would do is create a campaign for desktop, a campaign for mobile, a campaign for tablets. If you have over 12,000 keywords, you're basically tripling them. They actually turned around and said, well, no, not anymore. We're not necessarily seeing differentiation between these devices. We're now just going to use one set of keywords, and we'll serve them at different times based on the sort of information which Ian was sharing with you today. That actually it's called enhanced campaigns. And that actually, everybody will be migrated to this on the 22nd of July. We're in the process of trying to do a stage migration. It's not meaning that you will have a mobile campaign if you didn't have one previously, because you can set your bidding levels at difference. But that's a real world impact, which basically with Google saying we mobile first, or we don't differentiate between these. They also turn around to developers and website owners and brand owners. Get with the program. If your mobile site doesn't work with mobile, you're gonna have to correct that. You're gonna have to invest. Think about responsive design, which I know guys touched on earlier. So we use all this argument, we use some real world examples, and we said, look, there's some big opportunities for us as a brand to take advantage of this, because if we don't, the risk is we're going to drive switching behaviour. We've seen the stats already. I'm sure those stats are probably a few months old as well. So as we sort of did that, we've launched pretty Merric, apologies, but a pretty common, understood platform for us called Zest for Life, which was basically backed on the Hive infrastructure of loyalty programs, involving code entry on the back of packs, underpinned by some promotion. Our points are called Zest points. They're underpinned by the Coints loyalty currency. Coints is a point system, without wanting to go too much into detail, which is run across various different brands, with the brands having their own version, but it's actually redeemable at another version as well under the Coints system. So we launched Zest for Life. It's only a couple months old. Still got a long time to go. But one of the reasons we bought into this program was the infrastructure we were trying to build underneath it, the CRM infrastructure underneath what we were wanting to achieve. But not only just that, because Seven Seas faces some real world problems. We've got increasing switching behaviour. We did have a database, believe it or not, after 75 years. Our products are regime taken. Some of our products you have to take for 90 days before you feel any health benefit. Sadly, vitamins, minerals and supplements, despite what some competitors will tell you, are not a quick fix. They are about taking up and building up the levels in your body. It's fair to say my industry is full of snake oilmen, and if you read some sites, we're one of the more conservative brands out there. We obey by regulations which we operate. Some of our competitors do not. No names mentioned. So we had some real world problems. This Zest for Life, a loyalty program to help encourage regime, to help people to come back, and so forth. But the key difference why we adopted Hive is because we knew Hive was working on bigger solutions, linked to mobile, linked to all these trends, thinking about what could happen in the long term. Because let's face it, loyalty systems exist already. You've got Barclay, you've got Nectar, you've got Club Card, you've got Boots, Had Card, all of that information, rich information from retailers, all of which are purchasable by brands. It costs us money to buy different data sets, but we can hit customers who are buying our products every month to try and encourage them to come back and create loyalty. But it costs us money every time we do it. Better if we had our own database, because while we're investing in these, and they're fantastic systems, we're not getting the data from it. So we're not getting any long-term benefit. We are getting the bottom line, granted, and we may encourage normal loyalty behaviour, but we're not getting any chance to communicate going forward. So if we can bridge that gap, that's where we need to be. However, it made strategic sense from the Seven Seas point of view. We understand the challenges for code entry. We weren't naive. Yes, we're asking the consumer to want to go back to the base, to then look at a code printed on the inside of the pack, to then enter a 13-digit code into a desktop. We understand that that's only ever going to potentially remain a minority unless you have some really good promotions or you have very deep pockets. Seven Seas doesn't necessarily have those deep pockets like Coke Zone or some of the other bigger players out there, some bigger players represented here. So we understood that, but we also understood the fact that the difference between making it a small thing to a big thing is if we could introduce what the retailers has, which is a scannable experience. So if we could tap in to the fact that smartphone users, it was quoted earlier, 150 times a day, 6 minutes. Whilst I've been talking, a lot of you have been touching your iPhones actually were when Ian mentioned that fact. If we could offer a scannable experience, we've cracked that challenge. Because we too could offer the same easy process you do when you go to a retailer. You give your credit card at Tesco's, points are counted in your credit card if you're in the club card, or you need it on a fob. If we can bridge that gap in the future, why couldn't we have a very big loyalty database? Because that will underpinned by competition, underpinned by big rewards, but the reality is make it really, really easy for the consumer to do. Fantastic, if we can. I'm not sure if we can. Well, let's see what Merric says. We're hoping we can. The next biggest challenge is security. And hands up, I've had this argument many times with brand managers. They tell me about malredemptions, they tell me about abuse of codes. Now, the Hive system has a very robust fraud checking procedure for code entry. From a scannable experience, the brand manager flying out the door at this point. They recount to me the stories of how, after a fantastic promotion, they'd been using a voucher system with a retail like Sainsbury's, and it'd be brilliant. And then all of a sudden, 3 months after the promotion had finished, they get a bill turn up with all the redemptions from Tesco. Problem being, their products were never in Tesco in the first place because of malredemptions and people putting voucher cards through. So they're very, very sceptical about anything from a security point of view. And I can absolutely understand that. However, I can't address that. I'm going to hand that over to Merric when he covers his presentation, because that all represents a big opportunity. But you crack the security, you crack the scannable, and see what we could potentially have from Seven Seas point of view. It was worth investing in an infrastructure for future vision. According to all the stuff we solved in the immediate term and the now and the problems we face now, but in the future, what could it be? This is just an interesting slide. I don't know if any of you know Bitcoin, but contactless on mobiles. These are sort of some of the trends which are occurring. If we can tap into that as a brand, then we can have a loyalty scheme which is of real scale and not just down to a niche element. So I'll hand over to Merric. Thank you for your time. Hope you found it useful.
that working? Yeah, you can hear me very well. So just by way of introduction, I'm Merric Mercer, the founder and director of Hive. At Hive, we provide promotional platforms for brands around loyalty, and a key level of expertise is on proof of purchase, and we do that primarily by providing both hardware, pieces of machinery that we install in the factory, and also software systems that do the validation of the code. So the hardware that we supply prints codes onto the packaging in real time in the factory, and the software validates the codes when the consumer actually enters the codes. So we track everything through the proof of purchase. So the gentleman in the front there, when he was talking with Miss Ryan about Westfield, we do exactly that. We track everything to the point of purchase. What we do is each year we do billions of unique codes across loads of customers. Some of those customers, as we just as Paul just mentioned, Seven Seas, Andrex, we run all their puppy point schemes, all their loyalty programs. Recently just launched, you might have seen it on the television, is PG6 with Cuppa Club. What I really want to talk about today is actually the loyalty promotional ecosystem, and sort of take a step back and say, actually, what should brands, FMCG brands, what do they really need in order to be effective in running mobile promotions going forward? And the analogy I draw here is basically of a tree. So if we can zoom in and we look at the branch level, the branches really represent the application, the consumer-facing side of things. They're the above ground. Everybody recognises what they are. They're the loyalty point systems, they're the cashback systems, the try me frees, the prize draws, games, whatever the promotion, whatever the incentive is for the consumer to buy the product. But every great tree needs every broad tree needs strong roots, and one of those things which are fundamental to that infrastructure is proof of purchase. So that's a vital element is to link proof of purchase. We do that. There's a number of systems out there. As I say, we primarily do it by using unique codes, and I'll go on and explain in a little while how we see mobile shaping that. And the second area is consumer knowledge. So proof of purchase brings about consumer knowledge. You obviously get transactional data, information about what the consumer buys, and that allows what I call the trunk is customer relationship management. So the ability then to communicate, take that data, transactional data, the information you've gained about the consumer, and promote to them. And the applications or branches here obviously provide additional data back to your data store. I would say that at Hive, just on unique codes, we hold data for about 3.5 million consumers across the UK who enter codes across all demographics. And that's just prior to the mobile. So that's entering alphanumeric codes over a PC or on a mobile. So a key message that I want to get across here is it isn't all about the consumer applications at the branch level, and that seems to be an area where a lot of brand managers, a lot of people focus on, to the detriment of actually really understanding, getting the roots right, getting the infrastructure right. The key message is develop the infrastructure, and then you can build as many applications over the top of it. So establish the infrastructure first is a core message. Yeah, don't keep replanting. So what we see for many brands is they have one-use applications, one silo, one pot of data, and then they reinvent the wheel all over again the next time around. So you just get these smaller trees with different pots of data. So we're advocating very much set the infrastructure correctly, then build your applications over the top of those. And that makes you very much more responsive. And we all know that that's exactly what mobile demands. And it demands a responsive infrastructure as well as responsive consumer applications. Now, there's a lot of development going on. A lot of people, when people talk about mobile development, they really start thinking about mobile apps, they start thinking about the new devices coming on, glasses and those types of things. But there is also a whole raft of development going on because of mobile in the substructure, if you like. So it is about development of the whole infrastructure and not just, you know, the applications at the consumer level. Who's here? Is everybody here familiar with unique codes? Anybody not familiar with unique codes? That's great. Anybody actually enter the unique code? Okay, about 80%. So unique codes traditionally put on pack, alphanumeric, as Paul mentioned. Why unique codes? What's the advantage of using unique codes? Well, first thing, they're ubiquitous. They work across all retailers, all channels. They work online. They work offline. They work across all promotional mechanics. So you can use them for loyalty schemes. You can use them for multi-collector schemes. You can use them for one-off prize draws. You can use them inbuilt into games. We have APIs where you can tap them into sort of any sort of customer application. And they also have a very strong baseline of security. In the past, getting codes onto pack has been considered a costly and complex affair. You've had to install equipment and have operators changing out codes. Somebody's had to generate codes somewhere and then supply them. And then there's security issues and lots of hassle. And our goal has been to remove all that complexity. And one of the other things which Paul mentioned about complexity has been obviously with an alphanumeric code, consumers obviously have to enter an alphanumeric character, and you know, certain percentage of the population dyslexic. You get more consumer support inquiries. Still very manageable, and as I say, we still see a significant number of code entries, and we've had a significant number of consumers that we collect data for, even with that. But the future is machinery is now developed and available, which prints unique scannable barcodes on every single pack. Now this is not the same QR code on every pack. This is a different QR code on every individual pack. So rather than the same QR code across all the packs. So that barcode as well can not only contain a QR code, but it can contain all sorts of other meta information. So because our machinery goes into production lines, that barcode can also contain the best before date. It can also contain information about where that product is going, which retailer it's going to. So the opportunity is when a consumer scans that barcode, they can not only be validated for a promotion, but they could also potentially be validated for an offer. They scan the barcode, they get an offer. If the better data, for example, is saying that this product is near its expiry date, they might get a better offer than if it wasn't, for example. So that metadata can then be brought into the whole equation in terms of making offers to consumers. The hardware that we supply auto-generates code, so the goal here has been looking at the whole infrastructure and saying, how can we make this work as easily and seamlessly as possible with the least operator interference. We wanted a plug-and-play approach that we could roll into factories, install, walk away, and nobody at the factory has to touch it. It just prints codes 24/7 on pack and synchronizes automatically. The machine synchronizes automatically with our cloud-based validation service. So once installed, nothing else needs to be done. The consumer just scans the code and validation is then carried out through the mobile scanning. And that effectively eliminates all the complexity, reduces overhead. It's about improving the user experience. It's about making life a lot simpler for the brand, lowers cost. And for the first time, what it really does is it allows brands to put codes on their packs 24/7, rather than putting codes on packs just for a tactical campaign and then going away and then reinventing the wheel all over again. Put the codes on the pack 24/7, build the infrastructure, and then build as many applications as you like that overlay that can make use of that codes and that infrastructure and capture the data and the information for the brand by doing so. Now the great thing about 2D codes as well and mobile is they can be linked to geolocation. So geolocation gives you enhanced security. So I scan the code, it knows I'm at home, it knows that I can redeem the code. Scan the code in the store, it knows I'm still in the store, provide me an offer. So there's a variety of security services that can be overlaid on top of the codes based upon the geolocation being provided by the mobile device or even by HTML5. And those can include, whether the consumer is at home. It can include brands can limit a number of consumers to a particular area on a per-day basis. The opportunities are endless. But also, of course, geolocation, as we've heard before, gives a lot of consumer insight. It also provides for very much more versatile applications. So there's an opportunity, as I said here, about dual-purpose 2D mobile codes, effectively. Code scan in the store, show the consumer the offer because it knows the consumer is in the store or not at home. Scan the code at home and allow the consumer to redeem the offer. Quite straightforward. So the core message really is take a step back, think not only about the applications of the branches, think about proof of purchase, think about the customer knowledge that comes out of that proof of purchase, get the ownership of that data and build a consumer relationship management, and then you can build all the applications you need over the top of that. Thank you very much.